I challenged Emmy to start talking about what it is that she's doing and what she brings to the table. And
when I pull, I don't shuffle and then like lay down and draw. I let the cards fall how they fall. And it was a 7-card pull today because I also don't follow traditional like rules, so to say, when it comes to the tarot. I asked one specific question to start once I've meditated and everything, because that's always my first rule of thumb. I can't connect to my cards if I don't meditate, so I'll of course do that, and then I'll pull my cards, ask one specific question, go with the question or go with the card or cards that fall within that draw, and then I'll ask those like deeper questions to go with it and like almost carry a conversation with my cards. I feel like that's a better communication rather than trying to ask a very overarching question and navigate through. But the first three cards that fell, I was like, son of a bitch. Like it was perfect because I already knew that I was excited for today. Of course, like I get to sit down and talk to you, but I love, like, I don't know if it's just the difference of like me being more open when it comes to tech this time around, me being not afraid to break tech this time around. But also like me kind of being excited to like figure out different ways, but like the editing process, I'm still like in that, and I'm still like like as I'm uploading and scheduling out some of these shorts, I'm just like, fuck, like I don't know, I'm just in it and I'm excited. So I was still like holding on to that energy, but like the first 3 cards that fell, I was like, well, yeah, like it's basically all about collaboration, the excitement that you feel and harnessing that, and then basically doing that and sharpening those skill sets that you already are showcasing within that leads to success, the goals, you know what I mean, the whole shift. But within that too, like I saw that deeper message of like what I dropped to you in that voice clip, like wait a second. And I have it right here. But like the first 3 cards brought in that whole, like, when you overindulge in pleasure, that pleasure will always turn into pain if it's not managed, right? And then like the 3, it's literally just the start of that unfiltered arc that I was talking to you, or the unfiltered you arc that I was talking about. I hate that. I need to find a different word for arc. It's just not sitting with me very well, but I don't know what to call it because it's not like I don't know, it's not a series, it's not a saga, it's mine, and I don't know what to call it yet. But those 3 cards really talked about like what we chat about briefly after I ended the recording for the podcast last week, about unwinding and the rules and the expectations and why I created it. And I'm just like, okay, so the universe is universing today. Everything's aligning. And as I ask those deeper questions, like, okay, so where do I exactly start with this? Because as you know, inside of growth, like there's threads, there's layers, and it's not even just like business, parenthood, marriage, those are just the umbrella arcs. There's complexity inside of all of those, right? So I'm like, well, where do I go? Like I had a certain pull, but it wasn't very clear. So I asked another like question, and the next 3 cards, again, just like the first 3, they fell boom, 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 and aligned perfectly with like the next layer of what we were talking about, and I'm like, okay, fuck. And it also within that, one of my favorite cards is the Hermit. I am very much a Capricorn, as you know. I am a natural hermit. But I just love the way that card looks. It just makes me happy. It's like a wizard holding a little, holding a light, and it makes me happy. And I very much believe in what that card stands for, right? It's like introspect, like self-reflection, go inward. And I'm just like, yes, so, and that's very much of what, like, I feel I bring to the table with the unfiltered you. I feel like I've done that deeper work that a lot of people avoid, but I've done it in a different way of not so much like let's beat around the bush and just band-aid everything so we feel better in the moment, to no, like, let's fucking get to the root of this, uproot the fucking thing if we have to, or let's let's manage it, you
Yeah.
know, because very much so, like very much similar to a tree root system. I mean, we're the same way. You know, we have our foundational roots, and sometimes they spread off into subroots into different things that we fucking don't need anymore, you know, or that we don't want but think we do because of status or keeping up with the Joneses, like I mentioned a little bit ago. I mentioned that just a little bit ago on this call. Yeah, I'm not losing it. um, but I feel like that's kind of what this pull was, and it just really spoke to me, Colleen. And like I said, that question that hit me hard there, it's still coming up now, but like now the whole surface of this conversation is kind of like spreading because I can talk to you now. So excuse my all overness. I promise this will all make sense soon. But like the first question that came up was like really that first deck of cards is like, how many people are ignorant because they don't know how to, one, go inward, or they don't know how to see the patterns that we talked about last week, or they're unsure of what exactly the feeling they are feeling because the emotional, I don't know what to call that. That emotional piece just isn't there. It's not developed. They were never taught that, you know? So that's a lack of skill, lack of knowledge, ignorance. But then I also think there's a deliberate ignorance for strategy, right? And I know that I've played that. Like I'll put myself on the chopping block, you know? I didn't want to feel, or I didn't want to feel the shit that we talked about in episode 1, you know, with me being able to move my body and my shoulders and my legs and losing the weight and stuff, you know, like I just didn't want to feel that, you know. I'm still not a very conflictual person. Like I don't like conflict. So a lot of times, like I'll smooth things over, keep the fucking peace to avoid that conflict at all costs. But at the same time, why? You know, if it's not me getting in a conflict, what's the point? You know, I can't control those two people's actions. Why am I trying to smooth over anything? You
Yeah.
know? Um, and then the other one that really like stood out to me too was like, or the other two, um, avoiding bad news, and then strategic self-interest, you know, like avoiding the bigger issues. And we see both of those a lot. Like I know that I'm always the first time, or anytime somebody says, well, do you want the good news or bad news first? I'm like, well, give me the fucking good news first, I guess. You know, like we always avoid the bad, right? And that's no fault. I think that we're like kind of programmed to do that. But at the same time, the second or the last one I mentioned too, the strategic self-interest, like there's no shame in doing any of these if you don't know what you're doing, right? Like, and what I mean by that is like trying to basically, I'm trying to think of the example that I had and I'm trying to find it in my notes. Like avoiding the bigger issues. So like if what we talked about last week, right? Like there's always a 3 fingers pointing back to you as you point the finger, right? If you constantly ignore those 3, just to keep your status, just to keep the reputation, just to keep the relationship, just to keep the job, I could keep going, right? Like I could keep going with just to keep whatever. But you're ignoring the bigger issue just for your self-interest. That's what I mean by that. So I don't really know where you want to start dissecting that, Colleen. I feel like I've kind of took the air out of the room when we first went in with this, but that's kind of really what came up for me at that first initial question was like, wow, how many people are really sitting in like the actual ignorance, lack of knowledge, you know, like, or hey, is this really what I need to do, and if so, how? But or oh well, that's probably what I need to do, but I'm not going to. you know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and then the overarching piece of all of it, like I just kind of, I watched basically what I've built kind of lay out in front of me, and I'm like, huh, it's just interesting how the universe will universe with Colleen. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
So I'd like to go back to the beginning and explain what it is that you're talking about. So through your own journey of metamorphosis, self-discovery, self-healing, self-growth, development, like, development as a person, development as an entrepreneur, like all of that stuff. Um, you have done what is recommended, that when you're going to pass something along or have something to offer other people that could help them, aka a tool, that you actually use that tool yourself. So you should basically be your first test subject. So through your journey, you have created a system of ways, A to Z, so to speak, on how to help someone discover what about themselves.
Basically, I don't want to, I hate saying it this way because it sounds so cliche, but it's the truth, right? Like the truth of who they are, what it is they want to do, what it is they want to do, or I said that twice, sorry, and how it is they want to do that, right? And I know that sounds cliche, but let me explain that a little bit. So the very first part of this, um, and what really helped me and what helped another one of the clients that I've worked with through this was actually like taking that step back and looking at all the rules and expectations and identities that I thought I had to be, right? So, for example, um, like just a general few that I am, like I'm still a daughter, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a business owner, um, I'm a friend, just top five that right here. You know, a lot of times society is one, our parents is another, um, the our other influences, our friends, our teachers, the everyday people that we're around, like they play big influence on what being those people look like, right? Meaning what rules we should follow as being a wife or a mom or a business owner, a daughter, a friend, whatever, right? Meaning what expectations those people should have to be held to, right? And that's what I mean by like actually getting down to your true version. That's just the tippy top, right? Um, as as I continue, I have a whole exercise on that, and I keep going back to it. I've done it about five or six times now, without going back in my journal and looking, you know. And each time I find that I'm holding on to um, not necessarily like the same rules, but the same, or not the same identities, but the same expectations, right? So I'll briefly talk about this without going into like a whole lot of detail, but like um, I was holding up a lot of expectations being the daughter, right? Feeling like I had to carry the weight of my family, feeling like I had to carry along my parents, feeling like I had to save the day anytime somebody needed it, you know, um, just because of what I was told being younger growing up, and I didn't have a typical childhood. I lost my mom at 8, so I was told different things than what my 6-year-old son is being told now, you know, which there's no harm, no foul in that, but I want people to understand like why it was that way. It wasn't just like this what if persona. It was, hey, this is how I was conditioned, you know, and um, going or going through that process, I find that like I'm still holding on to some of the same expectations that I would hold on to being a daughter as I would, or um, I'm sorry, I said that backward. Like I hold them, I hold some of the expectations that I would being a daughter. I've molded that into almost the same expectation as being like a wife and um, a mom in some aspect. Not the same, like not like having to, well, yeah, like having to take care of everything. You know, as a daughter, I had to take care of a lot of things. I had to take care of myself. I also had to take care of the house at a very young age. I had to make sure I had food. I had to do all of that. You
Yeah.
know, and as I've added a different role or identity, I've kind of formed those same roles and expectations, and almost put myself up to this higher standard. And through that exercise, like I said, like I've been able to pinpoint that and be like, what the fuck am I doing? Yeah, you know? And that's really, that's kind of where my whole process starts with that. Because once you actually see yourself to what you're like basically holding yourself up to, that's where the bigger picture can kind of be like, wait a second, you know? Um, for me, the first time I did it, I didn't crumble like I thought I would, you know? I was just like kind of, huh, you know? At the same time, and rightfully so, this is why it's one of those resources that I feel is a very good thing to constantly, or not constantly fill out, but like go back and revisit it, you
Yeah.
know, every 3, 6 months, you know, maybe 12 as you go deeper into your growth journey. Remember, like I said on the first episode, like growth, I know why we measure it this way, but it's not that way. It's this way, you know, and that spiral goes smaller and bigger as you expand and contract, you know. So um um I think it's a really good tool because that's how you can navigate. That's how you can be like, wait a second, I don't need to hold myself to this anymore. Why am I still doing this? Where is this still coming up? Is it what actions are triggering this response from me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It allows that deeper work, which is what I do, not within the next, or well, I touch within the deeper work inside of unraveling you, but it's not like that one to one. You know, that's more of that recalibrating you, and it's not, so to say, like the, it's not Colleen's work, right? It's not the psychiatry work. It's more or less the like life work. Like, what do you need to do? You know, like I've done this work with inside or with an entrepreneur who is building her business the way that she wants to build it, how she wants to do it, with a purpose that I think a lot of us can get behind, you know. But had she not been able to see the rules and expectations and identities she was living up to, I don't think she would have been able to see this different direction she's going, you know. And that's the beauty of it, you know. Had I not done this, I don't think I would have really seen, I don't think I would have given myself the permission to stop doing a business coach or to stop being a business coach, you know. I don't think I would have even given myself the permission to be like, hey, the business stuff kind of burns me out, you know, just because we hold ourselves to those such high expectations, high standards that we think that everybody else is holding us to, but it's us, you know. And if somebody else is, throughout the deeper work of those of this process, like you will understand and you will learn to, one, release their opinion, and two, like it doesn't really fucking matter, you know. That's
Yeah.
two processes, you know, that kind of do the same thing, but like there's two layers within it. Well, three, I would argue, because like we've talked about multiple times, it's the mind, heart, and the body. You know, you're realigning all of those within that. It's not just the mindset work. It's not just the heart work. It's not just the or the heart work, the emotional work, and it's not just like the body work. You know, it's you're combining all three. Um, and I think that's, I don't know, Colleen. I think that's what I don't want to say I think anymore. I know that's exactly what I needed. I would argue a year, maybe even 2 years ago. Not even two, because I'm still dealing with a lot of like mindset and emotional work. But last year I would 100% argue that. Like I needed somebody to be like, here's my fucking pieces. Now help me straighten them out because what the hell is all of this? You know, like my mindset's saying this, my emotions saying what, or my emotions are off the fucking charts and I have no idea how to harness that shit. I have no idea how to regulate that shit. You know, I have no idea how to make it communicate with the fucking mindset that I know that I'm supposed to have,
Yeah.
you know, because by then, like I'd already worked through like, um, the imposter syndrome. And the reason I kept or like not just the imposter syndrome, that one's just the first example, but like because I had already come up with like all the reframes. You know, I knew I was better than that thought. I knew that I knew what was happening. It's just when your emotions are so suppressed, so um what's the word? Like I don't even think it's a word. Like when you've avoided those emotions for so long, you don't really know how to you don't know how to pop the top, so to say, you know, without it being 100 miles per hour and
Yeah, you don't
force.
know how to regulate yourself.
Yeah, you know, that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Um, and doing that, it's scary, you know, because you don't know how you're going to react. You don't know how it's going to feel. You don't know how things are, you know, type of in that type of frame, when the emotion takes over, the logic can't come through, you know? So all you're doing is making emotional decisions, you know, some of those could be irrational decisions, you know? Um, and when you're in that, like, I think it's really important to understand what's happening, but then also like, okay, I just, so to say, crashed out, you know, how the hell do I pick up my pieces?
Yep.
You know, and I remember Colleen, I remember you and I talking about that. I'm like not only was I on my island, like I was looking at a million and two pieces around me and like, how the fuck do I pick all these up? Well, needless to say, I didn't need a million and two pieces. I don't need all those pieces, you know, and they don't have to be glued and stacked and put together perfectly like society says. I get to do it my way,
Yep.
you know, and that's this process, you know, from unwinding you, which is really about the rules and expectations. Unraveling you is really about understanding what those emotions that you are feeling. It's that emotional reorientation piece. You
Yep.
know, I don't bring it down to like kindergarten level. Well, I do, so we can understand it, you know, but it's not like shapes and stuff like that. But like, it's so you can understand it in that context because I completely understand what it feels like to be like numb, but raging at the same time, you know? And
Yep.
it's not necessarily anger that you're feeling. It's so many emotions all in one. And you unpacking that can be difficult. You know, it's also inside the unraveling you, it's understanding that performing versus being, your income and status identity versus who you really are, you know, because materialism, man, fuck, they knew what they were doing when they created that because shoo. Um, and then what's the other one? Alignment versus attachment, which I think I mentioned that. You know, that kind of plays a hand and role into the status and income identity. Just so you can understand like what's actually aligned for you versus what you feel like should be attached, you know, because nothing that's aligned will be attached. It just moves with you, right? Things
Yep.
that things that are stuck to you, that's kind of that's the weight that we mentioned last or episode 2. You know, that's kind of like carrying that boulder with you that you don't necessarily need. Um, and then, like I said, the recalibrating you, that's the hands-on stuff. You know, I want to go deeper into, well, tell me what those pieces are, you know, and like I said, I've done this like as an entrepreneur, but at the same time, like I really like this on the life piece too, because I haven't just done this for my business. You know, I've done this with my relationship with my husband. I've done this with my relationship with my son. I've done this I've done this basically for a lot of the relationships I did have in my adult life. You know, I've done this for a lot of the things that I thought I wanted in my life. I thought I wanted this big ass barn dough with 15 fucking acres of land. Now I still want some acreage, but like I don't want all of that just for me. My husband has a business idea, and I can't wait to like help him do that. I'm on board with it too. I don't want just a big like I'd rather have a smaller home with room to put a couple farm animals and a garden. Like the whole status thing has shifted for me doing this. I've seen more where I can live peacefully rather than pressurized. And I think the more times that any human, no matter what identities or what roles that you play, that we can pop the top on the pressure, that's where change really starts to like be visible. But when we bring it down to that bottom level, there's absolutely no pressure, and you get to see all the pieces and you get to pick and try and experiment with the pieces. That's where transformation happens.
Yeah.
And that's really what I want to bring to the table. But I feel like that's so wordy, but fuck it. That is what it is, in my own words.
No, it's exciting, and it's exciting for, down the road, anybody that chooses to, to jump in that world and really give themselves the gift of themselves. Because, what stood out to me and translating it into how I frame it for people that I work with, when you were like assigning like the labels, like daughter, mother, friend, I always say like one of the biggest messages that I like to convey to people, and it's, personal and professional opinion of my own. People pay to hear my opinions. I don't offer them in non-professional settings. Um, is it's not our obligation to fulfill the label simply because we were born. And it doesn't, everyone makes their own decision. Everyone has to decide what's important to them. But just simply because we're somebody's daughter does not oblige us to doing XYZ for them,
Yep.
And a lot of people function out of guilt. And, you could have like what you perceive as the worst parent in the world. And now, because they're whatever age they are, whatever affliction they have, you're like, yeah, but that's my finish the sentence, right? And sometimes there are people that have that sense of obligation simply because they do, not because anybody guilts them into it, not because someone is saying like, well, you're my XYZ, you have to do this for me, right? Some people just have a great sense of family, right? Usually it's family. And if that's what's important to them because it's important to them, then that's what they need to do, you know? And other people are like, I don't care that that's my X, Y, and Z, because when I was growing up, my X, Y, and Z did A, B, and C to me. So they can take a hike. They can figure it out themselves. They can, set provisions for themselves. They should have had a plan. Like, I'm not going to give up my hours. I'm not going to give up my days. I'm not going to give up any of that stuff. So everybody has to make that decision for themselves. And I think your program that you've developed would help someone if they're in like that transition phase of having a family
Absolutely.
member who's like independent versus becoming dependent, and dealing with their own sense of like, how should I work with this? What should I do? How should I show up for that person? What should I give up? What am I willing to give up? Right.
Yep.
Um,
Eloise.
because it is hard, for we're born into this world. We strive from our first cry to become independent. We fight tooth and nail during a whole entire developmental phase to be independent. We get to the point where we finally can move out. And then the majority of people decide the independence sucks because toilet paper runs out, toothpaste runs out, food has to be bought on a regular basis. Who's cooking dinner? What are you going to have for dinner? I'm sick of making decisions. Almost everyone gets to the point in their adult life where they're like, I don't want to make another decision. I'm decisioned out. So then you get to that stage of your life, and now these people who are older than you now need this. They've lost their independence, or they're losing their independence. And you're just at the final piece of your life where you can just focus on yourself again because you don't have little humans that require anything from you. But now you have older humans that do. And like what do you do with that sense of obligation, that sense of guilt, and being thoroughly okay with whatever it is that you decide to do? And that's just one example.
Yep.
But the biggest one is the obligation to fulfill the label that you have simply because you were born. That's the biggest label.
Yep. And I love how you said how you distinguish the two. Because I agree, some people have a great sense of family.
Yeah.
Like hats off to them. But at the same time, I also want to shine a light too. The majority of them were brought up in that, right? Meaning like that they don't know anything other, you know.
You mean like the message was their family, we show up for them? Like
Correct.
that's their family culture.
Correct.
Their family, we show up for them regardless of how they treat us, what they do. Like their family's there for family.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah.
Versus kind of like what you said, seeing that other lens, like, wait a second. Yes, you are X. However, A, B, C, D, whatever happened, that doesn't mean anything. Like, I love how you distinguish those two, because seeing that difference, because I was the first, I was told that, and then I remember even being a young kid, like, for the love of fuck, Colleen, my own mom didn't come to her funeral. None of her family came to her funeral. Okay? Like, I'm just going to say that. Like, the fuck? So, right there at 8 years old, like, that statement to me was point blank. I'm like, the fuck? What do you mean?
And they should have been there for you.
Exactly. But they weren't, and like the more, like, even looking back throughout this process, because like, let's face it, there is self-reflection, right? And I'm not telling anybody living in the past is fucking dangerous. Don't do that. Right. But you have to revisit. That is the only way that you can go back and actually learn from it, is if you revisit it.
Reflection.
And, correct. But like going back and living, no, you can't live there. It's already done, and you'll miss everything. You'll miss everything in the present, and you won't have anything you want in the future. Right. But absolutely going back and reflecting and like revisiting pieces, that's beneficial. It's healthy. It's normal. And it absolutely should not be ignored. Yeah, some of it's painful. I get it. I put that off too. But going back and like seeing that really allowed me to be like, wait a second. Why should I be here for people that weren't even here for me? And I'm not just saying family. I'm talking friends. I'm talking colleagues. I'm talking fucking the damn neighbors. I'm talking about every interaction. And I didn't, like, to bring it like kind of full force to like episode 1, I talked about that. Like I didn't want to revisit those things because I felt a lot of guilt in my own self. I felt like I did the things wrong. But looking back at it, like there were times that I definitely should not have acted the way that I did. And I'll own that. but at the same time, and for a lot of those things, I have apologized. I have a really good friend that's like, "Will you stop?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." But anyway, like going back and seeing those pieces and whatnot, like at first it was really, really painful, right? It was like a glimmer of reflection where it's like, oh, why did I do that? But then looking at it, I know exactly why I did that because I was stuck in a survival mechanism and it was a learned behavior from all of it, right? Now, if I didn't own up to the petty ass behavior, and I'll own that, it's my behavior. I can call it what it is. But like if I didn't own up to that petty ass behavior, I wouldn't be able to sit here today and actually use the knowledge that I have. I would just go right back into the petty ass behavior. And what does that do? It doesn't change anything. It
Keeps you
keeps me
stuck.
in it keeps me in that toxic loop. I don't want to live there anymore. My energy can't handle that anymore. My nervous system is a lot of it was with the unfiltered um you piece, like a lot of it was nervous system based because my nervous system was pleading with me for the first time. And I started this last year before I turned 31. For the first time in 30 years, I was like, I don't have to I don't have to worry about anything or worry about anyone but myself, my husband, and my son, you know, in that moment when I created this. And for the first time being able to do that, I was like, why why haven't I let myself go back through these glimmers of reflection? Why didn't I let myself go back through and regulate my emotions? Why didn't I? You know what I mean? And truth be told, like a lot of it was because of my own guilt, my own shame, my own doubt, my own fear, you know? Um,
Your own doubt and your own fear that was given to you without your consent.
exactly. It wasn't even mine. I was so worried about what other people would think of me, um, that I was taught just to hide just because that's what I was taught to do at a young age. You fuck up, you make a mistake, you spill the fucking milk, which that I don't know about you guys, but that happens a lot in my house. I have a 6-year-old that's trying that he chooses when he wants to be independent. Right now, it's I want to pour my own chocolate milk, and we end up with mess. Yeah. So, but like in my house growing up, that was a big fuck up. You know,
Yeah.
um, like
Mistakes weren't allowed.
correct. And when I finally let myself see that, and that was inside of the unraveling you and the recalibration piece, the recalibrating you piece. And for those of you that are like wondering what I'm talking about, like the unfiltered you is the umbrella name of all of this. The unwinding, the unwinding, unraveling, recalibrating, and amplifying are like the chapters within this. Um,
And
you
that's the
know,
program that you've created.
correct,
Yes.
correct. The different layers, yeah. So this all hopefully that all makes sense. But like inside of the unraveling you and the recalibrating you, that's when I was really working with those pieces. Because after you unwind from the rules and identities and you see them, that's when the unraveling can take place, right? That's the deeper work. Well, some of the deeper work, you know, that's basically where you're moving all your leaves, so to say, just so you see the ground. Okay. And then when you get back or when you get to the recalibrating you, that's where you're really like, fuck this root system. You know, I don't want it this way. Let me plug and play with my pieces. Right. And that's really where you're you're resetting those boundaries. You're resetting your internal system, so to say. So not necessarily like your morals, beliefs, and your values, because those shouldn't change. Well, they will change because people do change, but like those are pretty set, you know, like you know not to hurt people at a young age. You're not going to change your mind at 31 years old. Yeah, you know what I mean? So like your boundaries, your rules, your expectations for your being, so to say. That's what I mean by like recalibrating your system. You know, you're setting your own stuff in place. And then amplifying you is really like standing your ground and like, this is me, showing up that way, showing up the unfiltered you, you know. Um, I don't know where I was going with that, but um, using, using these tools that I showcase inside of all of Unfiltered You. You know, it's not just meditation, it's not just journaling, it's not just breath work and understanding your nervous system, like tapping into some of it's not necessarily the somatics, but it's like self-centering yourself, kind of with the grounding work that we did in episode 2. Um, like I don't go deep into the pain that Colleen does touch on. Hence why this works so well, because I could be like, hey, I know exactly what you're dealing with, but hey, I'm gonna send you to Colleen because she helps me get through some of that stuff too. You know, but like sitting in this process, like I definitely think that I think it's needed alongside like the mindset piece. You know, that's why I
Well,
wanted to like,
it's all connected. I mean, we
yeah,
are one flesh bag of biodegradable hazardous material. So, you
this
know,
material. Some of us have a lot more hazardous material than others. But no, I feel like I lost my train of thought there. But yeah, Colleen, I love how you describe that because the going through my own process inside of the Unfiltered You, like it allowed me to see not just those two perspectives, but like a completely different lens. You know, it allowed me to see like a few different people's perspective and be like, wait a second, you know, and that only helps your awareness. That only helps you stop in the second that something does happen, you know, because you're going to run into things constantly. You're going to have ebbs and flow in your life, you know, that's why it goes like this, you know. But the better that one, we can build our self awareness, right? It's not just something that's given to us. We can build it, we can sharpen it. Two, the more awareness that we have, I think that the better lives that we can live. Because for me, the higher your awareness goes, the better you can protect your peace. The more peace that you have, the happier life you have, right?
yeah, protecting your energy.
Exactly. Exactly. In a nutshell.
And that's my, like, I would say that's what can't, well, I can't really say. So I truly believe I was born to do what I do. So I can't really say that there's any one particular thing that I love about it or one particular thing that drove me to do what I do. Because again, I just think this work, I was made for this work. But one of my favorite things to do within this work is to be part of somebody's aha moment. And mostly every single time I meet with someone, they have an aha moment. And that is, that's the reward right there for me. You know, simply just by them saying whatever it is they're saying, and I just simply reflect upon it or point out something or reframe it for them, and they're like, oh. And then my second favorite thing is when someone comes and been like, Colleen, I thought about you all week. I'm like, yes, I love it when I live rent free in someone's head, right? Because that means that just me simply, I don't follow any crazy one criteria, one program, one size fits all cookie cutter kind of thing with people. So I actually have a sign. I don't think I have it out right now, but I have a sign that says, I don't remember exactly what it says verbatim, but something about like, um, I'm just as surprised. I like everyone to be surprised by what comes out of my mouth. So, something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's so true because I'll have people say to me like, "Can you just repeat what you said?" And I'm like, "No." Like once it's out, it's out. Like I'm like, what did you hear? Right? Like I usually, I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing, but I usually can't verbatim repeat myself. I don't know why. I just like I give it, and then it's like that's yours. Like
And I think that's why, right? Like, because you and another person, and you know this person, um, you you both do that, right? And it used to drive me insane. I'm like, you just said it. How did you forget? You know? But then it kind of made sense to me because the more look, the higher your awareness is, you're you don't keep the shit. You say it, and then if it's good, you'll think, okay, let me write that down, you know, or if it's good enough, it will come back around, like, and I think that's the beauty of, I think that's, I think that's why one, I've always had a tighter pull to like, tell me about the mindset, tell me about the life piece, tell me about what you felt, tell me about, like even going back through like the business journey, like I remember that was always, I would always have more aha moments, more, I would remember the lesson, I would stay more focused, and I would just be able to get more. Like I don't know what more exactly is because it's a magnitude of different things, but like when they would talk about their real life shit, you know, and in that moment, just off the cuff, you know, and 9 times out of 10, like you can't remember what you said in that moment because it is just that raw experience. It is that lived moment. It is that like energy release almost, and it makes so much sense. The more self-aware that I get, I'm like, oh, well, it makes sense as to why I like that, because that's how I learn, but that's also very similar to what you said, Colleen. That's what I enjoy the most from people too, you know, just that little, like if I can help you make just a little click happen. So something, maybe it's your day, maybe it's your business, maybe it's the way you parent, maybe it's the way that you wake up and move throughout your day, you know, um, how you ground, how you talk to yourself. One fucking little piece. If it shifts how you do it and it makes it easier for you, fucking great, because
yep,
I know how hard it is to try to move boulders and not see any progress, right? And I think that's what speaks to me so much. Like I remember even telling people like back when I was building like the business coach stuff, I was like, I just want to help people. I just want to help people. I want to help people, like people transform, make that transformation happen. But I never really knew exactly what that meant. I didn't have the right words for it. Well, a lot of times I think that's because I was avoiding my own, you know?
yeah. And it's funny what came up for me when you were sharing that was I think so I had my own aha moment. I think the reason why, I'm pretty sure the reason why I oftentimes cannot verbatim repeat what I say to people is because it's so specialized to them. It's not a generic, I mean, I have some like, like the label thing, like it's not your job. Like I say, like I created that myself. I'm sure there's a million and one versions of that out there, but I created that myself. So I may say it that same way, or I may say it like a slightly different way. Um, but when something comes out of my mouth when I'm working with someone, what I say is usually so unique to them, which is why I can't remember what I said. I think
Absolutely.
that's I think that's why. Like, it's not mine, so I don't hold on to it.
Exactly. And I love that you brought that up, because that, I mean, gosh, that plays a huge role in the process too, of really like being yourself, being that true version.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like I would hold on to things. Gosh, like what we talked about last week, after after I stopped the recordings and I recorded again for the podcast, like holding on to those different, like, it has to be this way, it has to be that way, it has to be, those are just rules and expectations in work, and like the more that you go deeper inside of your inner work and understanding who you are, how you tick, your rhythm, you'll realize, like, I don't have to do it that way. And I know we've said that multiple times, but like there's something deeper in that. And I'm trying to, like, I guess I'm trying to verbalize that I don't know how. It's like an internal shift, like we all know what the aha feels like in the brain, the light bulb, at least that's what goes off of me. I immediately hear the minion light bulb, like, okay. But like there's a shift inside of your body too. And like when you make that shift, that you feel like this abundance of energy, just it's like a gas, like somebody pressed a gas, you know. Shit, Colleen, where was I going with that? It totally left my brain. If it comes back, then I guess it's important. But I'm sorry, I took the air out of the room on that.
And one of my favorite people, she's passed away now, but one of my favorite people that has walked the earth is Maya Angelou. And she has a saying, I don't know if this is the full saying or not, but what we acknowledge, we can change. And and that is so true. If we don't acknowledge it, we can't change it. And not everybody is on a journey of growth, and that is perfectly fine. People can be where they're meant to be because that's where they determine they're meant to be. And one of the hardest things about being on a growth journey is you're going to leave people behind because you're going to outgrow people. And that's a unique concept, I think, for people. And depending on who you are as a person, leaving people behind feels scary. And other people might perceive it as like, well, she just thinks she's better than us. No, she's not actually thinking of you at all. She's thinking of herself. She's thinking of her own journey. She's thinking of her own wants, needs, desires. She's thinking of herself. And not because she doesn't respect you or like you or care for you or love you or whatever. She's not thinking of you. This isn't about you. And that is such a mature thing for people to realize, like, oh, it's not about me. It's not about me. Like, and people have like that overwhelming sense of being left out. And it's like, you can't be left out if you're always having a party of one, right? Like, everything else is just confetti. You can't be left out if you're part of the confetti, because that's like a bazillion pieces.
Exactly.
But if you're always having a party of one and you invite people to your table, or she's having a party of one or he's having a party of one, and they invite you to their table, then that's different. But and everyone's sense of like connectivity is different. Like I personally am very much a one person band. I don't need people to be around me. I don't need someone to do actually 99% of the things that I do in life, I prefer to do by myself. I don't I don't want a friend with me. I don't want a family member with me. I don't I don't. I want to go by myself. And it's not because I don't enjoy people. I enjoy people in a different meaningful way than what other people perceive as meaningful. And that's fine. But we can change what we acknowledge.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Maya.
No, I love it. I love it. And with what you said too, like, a really good friend told me, and I can't remember when he said it, but he said, some people are sentences, some people have paragraphs, some people have chapters in your book, and some people can be there throughout the whole day, and like that hurt when I first heard it, just because because yeah, it is scary. It's scary to leave people behind. It's scary to let go of people, but at the same time, um, like when that really did sink in, it was like, why am I like? You kind of have to ask, like, okay, well, they're obviously not holding anything up for themselves. Why are you going to hold it up for yourself too? You know? And I love what you said too about it's not about you. You're 100% right. Like, I maybe I'm weird, maybe I'm not, but maybe it's my awareness. But like I like to walk around and just watch people. Like it's fun
No,
to
I do
me.
too. I do too.
It's fun to me um because people are just in their own little worlds, and it's so cool. Like it's so cool just to watch. And every time I think about that, like every time I hear it, well, or I'll tell like, it's not about you, like I say that to my son a lot, like trying to make him realize like everything's not about him, you know,
But
like
it is because he's 6.
well, right, right, right. It's just not in the classroom, unfortunately. Like he needs to understand, but but like it's so cool to watch because it's almost like this mini universe. Like I just literally think of like like planets flying around their head, you know, um, because it's literally what it is. That's all it is. And the faster that we realize that about ourselves and about other people, the less reactions we're gonna have. The less conflict, the less arguing, the less because then you're like, okay, well, that's your opinion, and that's when opinions go back to being just opinions and not like detrimental, like make or breaks.
Opinions are like assholes. We all have one and they all stink.
Exactly.
Which is why I never offer my opinion unless somebody asks for it. I don't appreciate other people offering their opinions to me. I, like many other people, despise being told what to do. If you tell me what to do, I'm going to do the exact opposite. Even if what you told me what to do was my plan, I'm not going to do it. Like I'm that stubborn. I because I just don't think we should infringe upon other people's autonomy. Like I truly believe that to every fiber of my being. Like if you say you go to someone's house, right? And you see, I don't know, you see something and you're like, wow, like that would be really awesome if that was like sky blue, right? Rather than saying like, you should paint that sky blue. Ask them, hey, have you ever thought about, you know, changing the color of this? Like, do you plan on changing the color of this room? Like, I'm just curious, right? My house, it's all different colors or whatever. Like, don't impose, don't impose on people. I don't know. I just personally just don't like that. I find it to be rude, invasive, and it pisses me off, honestly. Like, pisses me off. And just because you think something should be done in a certain way doesn't mean it's right for everyone. So just because you have this doesn't mean you should use it. You don't have, you know, intellectual rights to just flap your tongue everywhere you want to be. And I don't know. I think maybe partly because of who I am and how, like the lunacy and where I grew up and who I grew up with, I just, I have no tolerance for it. I have no patience for it. It's not who I am, how I want to be, you know? So it's weird. It's
It's
weird.
not weird. It's not weird. I think, and I'm going to put myself here because it's something that I'm actively working on. Like sometimes, like I feel like I do come across like I'm telling people what to do, and I'm like, I'm not. That's just sometimes my passion gets the best out of me, and sometimes it seems like I'm angry. Sometimes it does seem like that, but I'm like, no, no. And that's why I'm always like, okay, I say that with love. I'm sorry. I know that kind of came across mean, but like, we also have to understand too, like, that's not weird at all. I think a lot of people forget that, you know? I mean, look at it. How many times are people so fast to just be like, hey, you know, without even thinking, you know? And it's like, you don't even think about what your words do, you know? And I'm not trying to like be like that person, like, oh, words hurt. But yeah, sometimes they do, you know? And you can't take that back. And,
Yes.
and not being able to give somebody the time, like that right, you know, and then being unwilling to look at your own self and see what you did wrong, like that's not, see what I'm saying? Like there's a word for that, but I don't know what the word is. Like there's got to be some sort of like you know, and I think that's honestly like, I think there's a lot of things wrong in the world today, but I feel like that's one of the biggest things. Like we're so quick to tell other people, but we're not quick to tell ourselves. And that's the problem, you know? Like, Colleen, you know this about me. I will blame myself before I blame anybody else, even if it's not my fault. Right.
And I'm the exact opposite.
And I finally got to the point that I realized what that was doing to my energy. I was dimming myself because of other people's actions.
Yeah, you were owning other people's stinky shit.
Yeah, and that's not okay,
No,
you
it's
know?
not.
And like but so like, and I think that's what kind of made me go on that. Like I think that's one of the biggest reasons, not the reason, but a big reason why Unfiltered You came to me, you know? Because it's like, even from a kid to fuck, I'm 31 and I still carry other people's actions, you know? Like, like that's not okay, you know? And seeing it and like allowing myself to see that, like I think it triggers and helps people in the best way, you know? Yes. And I am a firm believer that like I know I can make people mad and upset, but I don't do it out of hate. I don't do it because I think that you're wrong or that my opinion's better. I do it because I think there's a greater good that can be done the more times we all look in the mirror, you know?
Yeah.
But
My
now I agree
favorite
with
word
you.
in the English language is intention. So much so that I have it tattooed on my wrist. And my second favorite word is acceptance. And I don't have that tattooed on me. um, but I probably should. Um, because I don't, I found, I found, I used to call it ultimate acceptance, but it's actually a real thing. It's called radical acceptance. And actually, if you look up the definition of radical acceptance, I found a different definition years ago. And here I am thinking like I created something, brand new, like, woohoo, look at me. I'm like, all this really cool person. I created this. I didn't. It was a thing. And, but the thing about that is that is really satisfying to think that it's an actual thing that other people talk about and other people teach and all that stuff. Um, so oftentimes people justify their actions behind their intention. Oh, I was just trying to be helpful. No, you were trying to make it about you. This isn't about you. Again, this is not about you. And sometimes you can have the best intentions and it can still be hurtful. And when someone says, like, that hurt my feelings or that was offensive or whatever, acknowledging that and letting it be about them is a human flaw. Most people can't do that. Well, I didn't mean it that way. Well, that's great that you didn't mean it that way, but I'm telling you, it was hurtful to me. Well, and then the other person starts to go on the defensive, and then you've lost all production right then and there, because you as the person who said it with the best intentions are not listening to what the other person is telling you about their experience. That's important and that's crucial, especially when you're in a position that someone is paying you for them to work with you. Obviously, do no harm, right? You never want to do any harm. But when you're in a position of a life coach, when you're in a position of, spiritual advisor, like, throw whatever label you want on there, right? You can actually speak more freely because that's what the person, not to say that you're going to say, you were fucking stupid for doing that, right? Like, you're not going to do that sort of stuff. But, you could very eloquently point out and be like, let me think of an example. You could point out a quality in the person that you hear them saying, but they can't yet see it about themselves. And that sends that person into a conflict within themselves, and you watch it unravel. And then you simply point out to them, like, do you realize that you're arguing with yourself about yourself? Why are you doing that? And they're like, oh, that's the aha moment. But when you're just a friend, you have to be even more purposeful, more intentional with your wording than I think if you're a professional, that someone is coming. Like, the things that I say in my work, I would never say to a friend. I never, unless they asked me. Because I firmly believe I should not offer my opinion unsolicited. And I live by that. I never offer my opinion unless someone asks me. Never.
Hey,
Professionally, I do, because they pay me for my opinion.
absolutely. Nope. I agree.
So it's exciting. So more people, need to get into your world and need to work with you. Because you know what? Like, there's not one, like, how many, like, if you Googled, now I think we talked about episode 1, episode 2, I'm not really sure, that I think of life in the reference of a recipe. If you Googled chocolate chip recipe, I've never done it, and I'm curious to, and I probably will after we're done talking, or maybe you can do it right now. If you Googled how many chocolate chip recipes are there, now does it mean how many different versions of a chocolate chip recipe are there? There's probably thousands. And you ask yourself, like, it's butter, flour, sugar, chocolate chips, and vanilla. Like, how many different recipes can there possibly be? I bet you there's thousands.
So
And
I
I bet
Googled.
you there's kind of a different variation out of all of those recipes.
So I Googled millions of variations, right? A vast number of variations. The concept of chocolate chip cookies alone is subject to countless from different types of chocolate, whether it's white, chocolate, or milk, dark, mint, bittersweet, um, whatever, to the addition of other ingredients like nuts or different flours. As well as different ratios of ingredients, mixing methods, and baking times creates virtually endless numbers of unique recipes. And I mean, that makes sense. Like, you want a soft baked chocolate chip cookie, or do you want like not like a hard chocolate chip cookie, but like a, you know what I mean? Not as
Crunchier.
yeah.
Do you want
So
German chocolate? Do you want Swiss chocolate? Do you want Canadian chocolate? Do you want, Hershey chocolate? Like,
there'd be so many eeny, meeny, miny, mo's going on in my fucking home. It wouldn't like, see, and that's the thing too. With inside of the unfiltered arc, like, I did not want, like, all of this, all of the like tools and resources are cool to me, right? Like, I mean, Colleen, you and I have briefly talked about meditation on here. We've talked about journaling on here. We've talked about a little bit of breath work and grounding. I use all four of those, but then I do, like, I don't use them as probably as much as Colleen does, but I do like certain sounds, especially like, what is it? Like the 483 hertz. I love that type of, just to, like, I'll plug that stuff in and edit our podcast. I'll plug that in and just journal and stuff, just because it just helps me kind of zone in. Um, but I also here recently have like started to get really close to like the numerology pieces of things, and understanding that. And I know that these are all tools, right, to get a better relationship to self and all of that. But at the same time, I think there's, just like Colleen's chocolate chip cookie recipe, I think there's millions and two ways to do this. We just have to find the one that works. And for me, I've been to, and this is no shame to Colleen, what you do, because, and I say this because I know the type of, um, I don't know, like, I don't know if you're exactly like what the exact title is, but I know,
I'm a licensed social worker.
okay, so I know what type of social worker you are, though. You're an honest and benefit of them, not benefit for you type of social worker, right? For me, I went through a lot of therapists that were a lot of benefit for them. Let's go so surface level to milk the fuck out of the insurance and to milk the fuck out of the patient. This is in the industry.
Oh,
And
we scuba dive on session one.
well, and
there is no snorkeling.
I will openly say this too, like, back in 2022 when Colleen and I were chatting a lot, she was really helping me kind of go through some of that, my stinky chicken fat, my emotional garbage. Like, you were the one that kind of like opened my eyes, like, wait a second, it doesn't have to be surface level. And then I really took that kind of mentality and went deeper within my own self, within inside the unfiltered too, because I'm tired of, my job it's not even my job. Like, what I really enjoy is the aha moment, but also seeing that, because that's where true transformation comes into play. I'm not looking for leaps and bounds from people. That's not how progress happens.
Yeah.
I want those little things like, fucking Demi, I made a post today after not posting for 6 fucking months. Fuck yes. Like, it's tiny little shit. Even if it's the only one post you make. Okay, cool. That's progress. Like, I'm not looking for leaps and bounds, more or less, because I'm more or less looking for, what's your nervous system telling me? Where's it at? How are we aligning? Because once we're aligned, that's where the energy is really going to come from. But like, I really feel like that's kind of well, shit. I had my thought and then it went away. Um, what did I say to start up to that? I was trying to tie it all back together. Do you remember?
Oh no,
Oh,
I don't
fuck.
remember.
Let me think. Um, oh, like I said, tying it all back together, like out of the box shit. You know, I didn't want to have to pull people along, and I'm not going to, right? But I also didn't want them to have to be like, hold on, how the fuck do I get through this? You know, like I wanted a straight and simple drop, so to say, you know, almost like a spiral slide, you know, not a scuba tank, because again, I don't have like we talked about, you know, I don't have the certifications. I don't have the years of experience that Colleen has, you know, of talking to a magnitude of different people. But I do have my lived in experience, you
Yeah.
know, and as different as I am to a lot of people, I'm similar to many of you, you know, and I think that's the key concept of it, is just where's the similarities, where does it resonate, and how can we fuel that, or not fuel that, but how can that fuel this transition for them?
Yeah.
I think that's what I wanted to say. I don't know, Colleen. I feel like I rambled a lot on this one.
You talked. It was your goal.
Oh my goodness.
So so since I've known Debbie for so long and we are friends, I have no problem offering my opinion.
No, I actually asked. For those of you wondering, I actually asked for Colleen's opinion, so much to the fact where when she says, well, do you want my opinion? I'm like, that's kind of a dumb question at this point. So,
Or reframing or
yeah,
leaving her messages and telling her exactly why she should not be doing what she thinks she should be doing. Um, but backing it up with, you know, reasons why. Um, so yeah. Hence why we have a podcast.
no, I love it.
So
It's actually,
last week after we signed off, we got back on and talked, I think, for another hour, which probably should just be a an episode, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, how she can work with people, and because I have no problem shamelessly plugging my somatic energy healing 4 day 4 day course or whatever you want to call it, 4 day workshop, 4 day whatever. I don't even know what it's called, right? For 4 days of somatic energy healing, uh, with sound bath. So I have no problem. I have no problem at all shamelessly plugging that. And that's what this is for. It's to bring the work that we're doing to people, for people, and that's it. So good job today.
Thanks. Like I think it was episode 1. I'm still trying to be unfiltered, and like I shared with Colleen when we hopped back on, like it's hard, kind of like I'm in that amplifying you process, right? Like, okay, this is how I've recalibrated. This is where I want to go. This is how I want to do it. But now it's just like, okay, all right, world, hear me roar, you know, and that's really what it is. And this is that threshold, right? And like Colleen said last week, she's like, no, it's time. You need to talk. Like the the two voices that started this, that is exactly what you said. It's time. You need to talk. And I always feel like it has to be wrapped up in pretty in a bow, and it doesn't. We are not, as human beings, we are not wrapped up in pretty bows.
No.
You know?
And everyone that's going to walk through the door to work with you is going to be bringing a different story.
Exactly.
So yes, you have your process, you have your recommendations, you have your guide, but you're not going to go from step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they've barely got through step 1. Like, you're going to sit with them through each process, through each step, and let them set the momentum, right?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
that's the motto of social work, is meet the person where they're at. And I
Well,
before I even knew that that was a model, before I even went and got my social work education, like I truly believed in that. Like if someone's telling me, you know, they're not ready to, you know, whatever, they're not ready to get on the slide. Well, how come? Well, I'm afraid of heights. All right, well, why don't you just sit on the bottom of the slide? Right?
Yeah.
Why don't you scoot up a little bit for like, let's slowly, it's, you know, desensitize, which is the clinical term, but let's like slowly get them familiar with what they're doing. And yeah, you could get 5 people in one day that are like, hey, Demi, I really need to do this work. And one person could be on chapter 3 in 2 months. And the other 4 people could still be on chapter 1.
Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
So
And I set it up that way, and I think that's a lot of like, that was for me, I think I was battling myself so bad with that because like strategically, you know, you think, okay, this to this to this to this, right? Well, with growth and with how I want to do this, wiggle room is a must, right? Because like we said either last week or the week before, you can't force a person to go where they don't want to go, right? Remember, we are all energies and flesh bags, and your energy ball is controlled by you and you only, you know. 2, you can't force the energy to move if it's not ready, right? And a lot of times it's not ready is doing you a favor because you're not ready to meet what it's trying to tell you. And that's not a bad thing, you know? So when I was designing this, like that was, I mean, I kept thinking, fuck, it's got to be this way and then this way and then this way. But as humans, our growth, like I said, is this, you know? So how do you allow wiggle room with a process? Well, very simply, actually, you know, like this is why inside of this, like I have touch points. I always have questions. I always have a way that you can get in touch with me. So we can have that discussion. You
yeah,
know, where are you? Because even though, you know, I'm dropping like my lived in experience and how I was able to do XYZ with this, you know, yes, you may resonate to a piece of it, but your XYZ may be A, B's, and C. You know, there's still a way that we can. That's how this all works. You know, we all don't walk the same shoes. You know, we can't.
yep,
But I think that's the whole point of this is I really got tired of people saying, well, I did it this way. You have to do it this way. You know, no, I don't work that way, you know, and allowing it to be that way.
yep,
So no, that, like I said, that was a really hard piece for me, but no, wiggle room is a must. And communication is a must in this type of work, just because one, like, yeah, I can sense some shit and I can feel some shit that you're going through, but I can't read your mind,
exactly.
you know? So, within this work, like there is a lot of communication between you and I. You know, it doesn't have to be like deep communication. Like I don't need to know like what your fucking favorite color is, you know, but I do want to know like, hey, it's really hard for me to get on routine because I feel like I never have any fucking time for myself. Okay, cool. We can start there, you know,
Yep.
or hey, every time I go to sit down at my computer and pull up a piece of content, it makes me want to gag. Sweet. We can start there, you know, like there's a million and two starting points, I think, in life. But within this process, I mean, we just got to start, you know, and that's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Colleen, I talked a lot. Do you have to go? But no. Is there anything else that you would like to add to this episode before we sign off? Is there a challenge of the week that you'd like to add?
Nope. I think we can end it with your last words. Just start.
Just start.
And that means what it means for you.
Absolutely. I love that. And if you want, you can drop in the comments what that means for you. We'd love to hear. Okay. And until then, we'll see you next week for episode 4. See you guys.